You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Ian, look at this.
What, it's a police box? What on earth is he doing here? Well, these things are usually on the street. I feel it. Do you feel it?
Faint vibration.
It's alive.
Earth Station Who, a fun mashup celebrating nearly 50 years of the Doctor Who universe. Hold tight. You never know where the TARDIS is going next.
Blossom, yes, Blossom. That's the only sad thing. I want to know what happens next. Right then. Doctor whoever I'm about to be. Tag. You're it.
When are these teeth? What? What? What?
There we go. Okay, we're going to be recording this for a live episode of the Earth Station Who podcast. So if anyone doesn't want to be on recording or anything, keep their mouth shut. That's all, you know.
Or flee the room in terror.
Run. All right. So we are going to talk today all about the 60th anniversary specials. And we are also going to talk about, hopefully, Dr. 15 a bit, RTD returning, and we're going to talk a bit about some of the spoilers that we've heard, possibly who might be returning to the show, who might not be returning. So it's going to be very interesting to see. And the way we do our shows, we want you guys involved. We don't want to just talk at you. We want to talk with you. So let's have a conversation about this. My name is Mike Faber. I'm the host of the Earth Station Who podcast. On my left,
I am Mary Ogle. I am the co-host of the Earth Station Who podcast.
And I'm Matthew Kresal. I'm one of the con-chairs here, and I have had the privilege of occasionally appearing on the Earth Station Who podcast.
So tonight you will be the official Mike Gordon of the show, who is one of our co-hosts.
Howdy, everyone.
There we go. So it is awesome to have you guys here. It's pretty big. 60 years is a huge milestone for any kind of television show, project, movie, franchise. Person. You know, making it to 60 is pretty amazing. And Doctor Who, you know, it's amazing to think of all we've gone through over the 60 years. And that's just the Chibnall era I was talking about. So,
No, that only felt like 60 years.
That's true. But we have the return of Russell T Davies coming up. And we have Dr. 14, question mark, David Tennant returning. And it's pretty amazing that, you know, the buzz it's getting and everything.
Yes.
And are you guys excited about David Tennant returning to Doctor Who?
Oh, yes.
Okay, awesome. Because this is an audio podcast, so we need to hear from you. So,
the audience said yes.
Okay.
I said, woohoo.
Okay, you did.
They're nodding their heads vigorously.
Okay. Does anyone have any theories why the Doctor returned as a new version of the 10th Doctor?
Somebody offered David Tennant a new contract?
Bingo!
You figured it out.
No, it's kind of interesting because, I'm going to come out and say it, and this is no bashing against Jodie as the Doctor. She was fantastic. I loved Jodie as the 13th Doctor. I thought she was great. But the show running wasn't as good as it could have been. And she got saddled with some really bad storylines and everything. And not the best companions in the world either. And
Except for Graham.
Except for Graham, of course. All
Those are fighting words, Mr. Faber.
All hell Graham, so it's okay. But it's interesting because they needed something big to happen for the 60th anniversary. And what bigger than bringing back one of the most popular Doctors from the new series with David Tennant. And it's not like he's doing anything lately or any project. So, he was easy to pick up the phone and say, hey, David, you want to come on?
Yeah, I had the privilege of interviewing Terrence Dix 13 years ago in Chicago when we were in the lead up to the 50th.
Right.
And asking him about the 5 Doctors and the idea of doing what would have then been the 11 Doctors. And he made the very pointed comment that we have just reached the point where there's so many Doctors, it's kind of hard to give everybody a chance to have something to do story-wise. And you kind of see that, too, if you listen to Big Finish's The Light at the end.
Sure.
There's a lot to, there's enough plot really for 5 Doctors, and the first 3 are kind of off somewhere else for most of it. So it makes sense that, you focus on one particular Doctor. And I guess, if you're going to bring back an old Doctor of the current ones we still have left, who can still kind of come back and do the show, Tennant's the most obvious one to do.
You could have brought back Paul McGann. He doesn't look like he's aged today.
Well, I think they'd already brought him back in Power of the Doctor, though. So,
true.
Yeah.
More is good.
Yeah,
More is good.
More is always good.
Yeah. What's up?
basically, the guy they announced is tied up, so their choices were no Doctor Who series for a year, skip the 60th, or bring somebody else in temporarily, right?
So you're related to Dr. 15, Shooty.
Yeah, and, the guy they announced, and I'm not going to try to pronounce
Shooty Gatwa.
Yeah. Is tied up
I practiced. I don't want to say
with
it.
another obligation, and they've got to wait a year for him. So either they wait a year and do nothing, or they get somebody temporarily. And I think David Tennant's a great choice.
And RTD is a genius at promotion.
Right.
Yeah.
He knew exactly what he was doing.
Well,
I have mixed feelings about it just because I am not the world's biggest David Tennant fan. And I do, fair enough. There's a part of me in the back of my head as a longtime fan and knowing the history of the show, thinking about precedents that this might set for the future. But also, on the other hand, if you wanted to generate a whole boatload of publicity, those last 30 seconds did exactly that.
Oh, the internet exploded literally when, everyone was expecting Jodie to regenerate into Judy. And basically, you got David Tennant instead in full costume, too.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of controversy about that.
Right.
Why didn't, he
Why did the
regenerate?
costume regenerate?
Why did the costume regenerate?
Not the first time it's happened, but it's been a long time since that happened.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
But, it's interesting, too, because Doctor Who needs a lot of help right now. And it's no surprise, interest in Doctor Who over the last 3 or 4 years has waned a lot. The marketing has died down. The merchandising and everything. You barely saw any Funko Pops or toys for Jodie's era of the Doctor. You got some at first.
Yeah.
But then it trailed off really quickly.
I've seen Ed Brand, who was the show, the franchise manager basically of the show at the BBC, who did a lot of the marketing and a lot of that stuff throughout the Davies and Moffat era, getting asked about this.
Right.
And one of his comments about that is that part of the problem the show has currently is it's been running for as long as it has, since it came back in 2005. There's this kind of understanding in the British TV industry that if you get something that's going to run, you've got basically 7 years where it's just going to build and build and build and build, just based on experience and expectations within the industry. And once you hit that kind of mark, it becomes the televisual equivalent of wallpaper. And it's just something that's kind of there. And as he pointed out, Doctor Who, the 21st century incarnation at least, had this wonderful thing that 7-year mark, where it kind of hit that high, was 2013, which was the 50th.
True.
So if it feels like that we've been on a downhill trajectory since then, it's in part because the show's just been running as long as it has. It's increasingly hard to promote something that's always been around as far as most of your audience is concerned.
Well, that's true, because the 7-year plan, that's what Star Trek does.
Yeah.
A lot of the series with Star Trek, especially like Next Gen, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, they did the 7-year plan, and they did 7 years and done, and everything. What's up?
I think that has more to do with the 7-year contract plan for actors.
For a lot of them, yes, completely. But it also deals with marketing, like Matthew was saying, and that's kind of the thing about it. But, what Doctor Who, the interest was waning, and that's why also they brought back the showrunner from the heyday of the new series, and when it was the most popular.
Yeah.
And RTD has such a passion for Doctor Who. He always has. And everyone's putting him up on this huge, huge pedestal and everything. And then I think of the Azorbalok. So it's, episode of Doctor Who. And, not every episode was great.
Yeah. I mean, we do have to mention, too, that while interest has waned here in the UK and here in the US, it's also exploded in parts of, like, Asia, for example, and Singapore and whatnot. Something that has helped get Disney's interest in it is seeing the large international market for it. So, and RTD said at the tail end of his era, you can still find it, I think, on YouTube, there was a fascinating interview that him and David Tennant did for BBC Radio 2 in 2009 at the end of their era. And Davies pointed out that the only reason that Torchwood and Sarah Jane existed as spin-offs was because in 2006, 2007, the BBC had the money to spend. And he said that 3 years later, as he was leaving the show, that money didn't exist anymore.
True.
And so there hasn't been the funding to kind of do the kind of spin-offs and stuff that we've all been sitting here kind of clattering for. So, and, we need to talk about the Disney deal, because that's a huge part of this.
That's where we were headed.
Fair enough.
And everything. Because it's interesting, because everyone most likely in here knows that, you're not going to be able to watch Doctor Who on BBC America anymore, or on HBO Max, or Max, whatever it's called. In a couple months, it's going to be all on Disney Plus. It's going to be on Disney Plus everywhere around the world except for in Ireland and the UK.
Yeah. And
it's going to be, it's going to be not run by Disney. You're going to get Disney money bringing in, but it's not going to be Disney owned. It's still BBC is owning the big portion of it.
Right, Disney's just a distributor.
Exactly. Because a lot of people are like, oh, does that make Captain Jack a princess of Disney now? So
is the TARDIS suddenly going to show up at the UK Pavilion at Epcot?
There's a big possibility of that.
Ooh.
Yeah, that would be pretty awesome. And it's interesting because once Disney gets its fingers on you, Disney does not let go.
Yeah, I think this is Disney's way in. They've been trying to get a part of Doctor Who for a long time.
They've been trying to get Doctor Who since probably before the McGann movie.
All the way back, ironically, to 1964, Disney bought the film rights to Marco Polo.
Did they?
Yeah, they never did anything with it, but I'm trying to think of the guy's name who wrote the Black Archive book about Marco Polo. Uncovered the documentation, I think, from John Lucarotti's estate, that Lucarotti, because actually owned the rights to the script, not to Doctor Who, but to the script, in the same way Terry Nation owned the Alex stories.
Right.
He sold the film rights to Disney.
Did he?
They took an option out for it. He got quite a bit of money for it. They never did anything with it. They couldn't figure out how to develop it, I guess, without Doctor Who.
Right. But on top of Disney getting into it, Sony also is now going to have a big portion because they invested into Bad Wolf's production.
Yeah, the RTD and Julie Gardner's studio.
Right. So not only Disney, you also have Sony now involved. You're going to see Doctor Who, the effects being better. Hopefully the stories will be better. Knock on wood, folks. And we're also hopefully going to get better, just all around promotion, circulation of the series, distribution, marketing, and because I remember like when Matt Smith started as the Doctor, seeing billboards and magazine ads everywhere. You saw the Doctor and Amy Pond everywhere.
Front cover of TV Guide at one point.
Yeah, exactly. And so I would love to see that back again.
Yeah.
And everything. And I think you're going to get that once Disney even gets more influence into it and everything. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. And we're getting 3 Doctor Who specials. And we don't know dates yet, but they're saying November.
That's what I've heard.
And we don't know if it's going to be 3 nights in a row or if it's 3 weeks in a row or what.
Yeah, I could see it either way because when they did Children of Earth for Torchwood, they did it as, across 5 consecutive nights. And that seems to be a really good model for British TV at the moment.
So hopefully we can maybe get it around the 23rd of November.
I wouldn't be surprised if they did, 21st, 22nd, 23rd.
And ending it. Yeah. And my theory is I think we only have seen a fraction of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
And it's the 60th anniversary, folks. I would be shocked if other Doctors don't show up in this storyline.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of what I would have thought would have been in the 60th ended up in Power of the Doctor, I have to say.
Oh, yeah.
And I think Chibnall has said in interviews that he deliberately didn't use the modern Doctors in that, just in case Davies wanted to go run with it. So, I wouldn't be... I think we could rule out Chris Eccleston popping back up, because I know there's still bad blood between him and RTD. And we've got Tennant back. The question is, do we get Smith, do we get Capaldi, and does Jodie Whittaker pull a Matt Smith and pop up in one of his episodes?
I would love it.
Yeah.
What about you guys out there? Any thoughts?
You want multiple Doctors?
Do you guys want multiple Doctors? Do you just want it to see Tennant in all 3? Because, it's Dr. Donna. Literally, you're finally going to get that.
I'd like a little bit of variety so you can kind of focus on the arc that's happening.
Right.
That's me.
Do you think Neil Patrick Harris is... So I'm calling him the Celestial Toymaker right now because that's where everything's leaning. But we even don't know that.
That's true.
Yeah. So I would think it'd be interesting just to see what happens with that. And do you want to see that go through all 3 storylines?
I mean, that's a possibility. There's also the possibility that, as RTD has done in his era, we're being misled into thinking something else is going to happen. Because we do have the trickster character that he introduced in the Sarah Jane stuff that popped up in his era of the show a couple of places, too.
True.
So my speculation is that he's not the Celestial Playmaker. He might be the trickster.
That might not be a bad idea, because then tying it back into some stuff from his own era.
Yeah.
Right.
And everything. Which could work. I think it could work really well. But I know you're also getting characters from Doctor Who comic books coming in.
Yes.
You're getting Beat the Meat.
I mean, they announced that.
I mean, they're full-on adapting Star Beasts.
Yeah.
Which is, ironically, the second time it's going to be adapted, because Big Finish have already done it as Nakia.
Yeah, that's true.
And Pat Mills, and I'm blanking on the other guy's name who wrote it and illustrated it back in the day, fully involved with it and on board with it. So...
It wasn't Dave Gibbons, was it?
It may have been. I'm blanking at the moment. My trivia brain has shut down at the end of the weekend.
Well, you've gone through hell this weekend, Sarah. In a good way. In a good way.
It's more like, Capaldi and Heaven Sent. I've been punching a wall all weekend.
He has the knuckles to show for it, too. So it's cool. What do you guys want to see for the 60th? Do you guys want to see any of the old characters come back? Because, in the final with Jodie, we got Tegan and Ace coming back. We got Unit back, Then we got a lot of the old companions also. And we got the Doctor Who support group now, the companion support group, which is really awesome.
That feels like a spin-off waiting to happen.
Oh, yeah. And so there's a lot of cool stuff that we could see coming up. And like I said, RTD has come out and said the pictures or the video we've seen of Shooty, saying, what the heck is going on here and everything with the clouds behind them, that's not the real background, folks. He says you have to see it in context to actually see what's going on.
Yeah.
So I think he is the master of deceit in a lot of ways. Or as we like to say, the doctor lies, so does RTD. So.
I don't think it's an anniversary unless you bring back a lot of the old doctors in some role in it. I'd like to see a lot of the big bad guys come back as a consortium, making a concerted effort, against the Doctor, maybe trying to end this timeline again.
So kind of like what we saw in the Pandorica Opens type consortium type thing.
Yeah, something where they try to alter what the outcome of that one maybe.
That could work.
Yeah. I mean, you just have to find an inroad into any of these ideas to get them to work. But I also, the thing about anniversary specials, too, is that they also have to be accessible to a wider audience as well. I mean, the 3 Doctors, we think about the 3 Doctors, but also the 5 Doctors and Day of the Doctor, too, for that matter.
Right.
All were accessible to people who had never really seen Doctor Who before. Or, I remember watching this, when I was a kid or a few years ago.
Well, it's interesting because, like with the 5 Doctors, I know quite a few people who got into the old series because it was shown here in the United States first, then it was shown in the UK.
And UK fandom has never forgiven us.
And with computer graphics, there should be a way they could even bring back some of the classic Doctors.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. They did that in the 50th anniversary and everything. And I'm telling you, it was so frippin' awesome in that scene. There's, how many TARDISes do we have? There's 12. No, 13. And you saw Dr. Angry Eyebrows. And everything.
I mean, the technology has come further along than it was 10 years ago, because that's part of the reason why we got things like the opening of Name of the Doctor, and also why they were limited to reusing those old clips in that scene was at the time the technology, or really the budget, didn't exist to kind of do that. And we've been seeing through talking about Disney money. I mean, we've seen what they've done on the various Star Wars shows in terms of that. So, there is the possibility they could do something like that. And Big Finish has sound-alikes that they've been using real well. So,
oh yeah, very much so.
If they could bring back a young Kurt Russell like they did for Guardians, then
I don't think they have that kind of budget.
No, but what was used in a film 5-10 years ago is going to be very accessible on a TV budget, 5-10 years later.
Oh, sure.
So,
I mean, there's a real fine line there, though, between, there needs to be fan service, but there can't be too much fan service, because I think RTD is very aware that he needs to bring in new people to the franchise. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how he walks both sides. He's good at that, though, so I have faith.
Well, where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
That's true.
So, any other thoughts on that? What Doctors would you like to see back? What do you got?
I kind of agree with what you said about the multiple Doctors thing.
You think it's going to be a multiple
Doctor? My favorite
Doctor?
Matt Smith episode is the 50th anniversary.
Of course.
So I would love to see multiple, completely different Doctors just interacting again.
That would be great to see. I would love to see Capaldi's reaction to meeting David Tennant's Doctor.
I would love to see Capaldi's reaction to meeting Jodie Whittaker, honestly.
Which would be wonderful.
Yes.
Yes, that would be wonderful.
I'd like to see
this
that.
is the one that comes after me.
This is what I became.
Just like Will Hartnell, first Doctor's reaction to
2 and 3, yeah. A dandy and a hobo?
In his Christmas special when he regenerated into Jodie.
Right.
The first Doctor's reaction to Capaldi.
I thought I would have got younger.
It's like, I am younger.
That is awesome. What's up?
I would honestly love to see Christopher Eccleston involved in some way.
Yes.
Simply because he's, as somebody who watched the show as a kid and dealt with the years of no show, that magic moment of hearing the theme song start back up.
Oh, sure.
Because the rest of this would not happen without that man. Mm-hmm. And he did, and his excellent performance. And I know there's some bad blood. But I think he's getting a little bit better about with the fandom and getting to know us.
Have you been listening to any of the Big Finish audios with him?
They're very good.
They're wonderful.
Yeah.
They are really
well
good.
worth listening.
And it's because he was a wonderful doctor. He was awesome. He was the PTSD doctor, and he was great. He really, really was great. And I'm not the biggest Rose fan out here, but I loved him and Rose together. I think they were perfect together. And I would love to see him come back to see what he became later and everything. I think that would be an interesting reaction to see him doing it.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to have to be a burying of a hatchet somewhere, and I don't know, even with everything that's happened in the last 3 or 4 years.
And I don't think he wants the hatchet into RTD's back, so it's okay.
Well, he can put the hatchet into RTD and then bury it.
Okay, that's fair.
There you go.
What's up?
So I think it'd be a great opportunity if they pulled the future Doctor, Shooty, from the middle of his time stream in for some reason, and you get a glimpse of him as the Doctor, but not in the primary role of the Doctor, but as a Doctor being pulled in as part of the plot for Tennant.
I've always liked the idea, just speaking as a writer, I've always loved the idea that there's a Doctor Who story that you could do, and it turns out there's a supporting character who's there and who becomes increasingly helpful as the story goes along, and it turns out it's a future Doctor who stepped back in time.
And then when that Doctor's timeline comes along, there's an episode that links back to that.
Well, I was hoping when they did the next Doctor story with it was David Tennant's story. It was one of the Christmas specials that was going to be that David Morrissey was going to be one of the was actually a future Doctor and everything, because they had already announced that Tennant was getting ready to leave, and they hadn't announced who the next Doctor was before they made the Matt Smith announcement. And so it was like, oh, David Morrissey, the two of them having an adventure, and sadly enough.
Yeah, I mean, if people want to understand why I'm nervous about RTD coming back, it's those last set of specials. Because Next Doctor was a one-trick pony trotting around a publicity stunt.
Oh, yeah.
And the less I have to say about Planet of the Dead, the better. But I'm also trying to remind myself that's RTD at the end of a 5-year marathon.
Sure, of course.
And he was very burnt out.
And he's been away long enough, maybe he's got some new ideas.
We hope. What's up?
I'm just hopeful that they pull in just a small moment from the 50th where Tom Baker was saying there may come a time where you'll see more faces that you recognize, and I'm wondering, they've been planning this forever, so I'm wondering if that'll tie in at all, and that it may be multiple Doctors that way because of that.
That he'll keep on regenerating into different... That would be very... I didn't even think about that. That could actually be a lot of fun if they do that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the ideas that I thought they would pursue, Big Finish is in fact doing in Once and Future, which is the idea of the Doctor degenerating and regenerating into their past selves. Mm-hmm. So that's the first. We've got the first of those, and it sounds like it's going to be an interesting story arc. But again, Big Finish is doing what the TV show ought to be doing.
Right, and it's interesting because you're getting David Tennant back, but he has all the memories of 3 more regenerations that he's gone through since he was Tennant last time. So it's going to be interesting how he reacts to everything, and it's interesting, of course, as soon as he regenerates, he runs into Donna, so, which will be interesting how they do that, is that the Doctor, or who's that behind you, the skinny man? And so it's like, no, you don't see him, everything in the parallel. So it's kind of cool that they're doing that. So, but I could see them doing something with Shooty's Doctor is being involved somehow. Because I know at the time when they did the 5 Doctors, they had already hired Colin as the 6th Doctor. And that's the reason they didn't have him come back as Maxis.
Yeah.
And everything.
Because there was a drafting script written with him in it, and then they cast Colin and went, no, we can't do that.
Yeah, because they thought it would be too odd for the people, this is the 6th Doctor, and they're still playing a different character. So,
Do you think it'd be funny if they brought Rowan Atkinson in? Because he did play the Doctor.
He did.
Oh, heads would explode.
Joanna Lumley.
Yeah, because I don't know if anyone's ever seen The Curse of the Fatal Death. You can look it up on YouTube if you haven't. It is amazing. It was done for Red Nose Day, and it was written by Stephen Moffat.
Way back in 1999.
Yes, and Rowan Atkinson is the Doctor in that, and he goes through many regenerations.
Richard E. Grant, Jim Broadbent, Hugh Grant at one point, and then Joanna Lumley right there at the very end.
Yeah, the first female Doctor.
Yes. Which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool stuff that we got. And of course, now we also have, Shooties. They're filming right now as we speak. That we have, Shootie's Doctor and his new companion, Ruby Sunday, coming in. What do you guys think of that? Are you guys excited about the Doctor and Ruby, coming back? And it's going to be, what I've seen, they've been announcing some pretty big names coming in as guest stars for that season.
Yeah, Jonathan Graff and
Jinx Monsoon.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what they're going to do with that, because I know RTD has said that he doesn't want 2-year breaks anymore in Doctor, and he wants to get it back to where it's every year Doctor Who's coming.
Yeah, and again, that's why part of the Disney deal is so big, because as we've subsequently learned from what Chibnall said in his big interview when he left in Doctor Who magazine, a lot of that was enforced on him by BBC budgets and whatnot.
Oh, of course.
It's worth mentioning the BBC's been, for 13 years, has been getting a gradual budget squeeze.
Sure.
So,
but now that they got Disney money and they got Sony money coming in.
And I hope they make the most of it.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, they want to do spin-offs for Doctor Who. You're going to get spin-offs, and they've already they've announced Unit.
Well, they've all but announced it. We haven't gotten an official announcement yet, which is the reason why I'm still taking it. I've gone from a bag of salt to a teaspoon of salt. But
there's rumors they're going to be at San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah.
Well, I will believe it when it happens.
Right.
I've been burned too many times at this point.
We've all been,
Yeah, we have been. But it's going to be very interesting next month, because San Diego is the big media convention, and Doctor Who hasn't. They were supposed to do Doctor Who last year, but Chris said, "I'm done with it. No, I'm not coming." He didn't go. So
it was that moment in the transition as well, where it was like, you don't want to, as he put it in the interview with Doctor Who magazine, where he was being basically asked to explain it. It's like, it's like showing up at your ex's wedding.
It would have been kind of awkward. So, but Doctor Who is supposed to have a presence there this year, and everyone's hoping that they're going to make the official announcement about the spin-offs there. And this is, take everything, like he said, with a grain of salt. It's going to be a Unit spin-off, featuring, of course, Kate Stewart, and there's rumors that Martha might be involved with it, and with Freema coming back to Doctor Who, and then of course probably Osgood and stories there, and there's even hope that maybe even Ace and Tegan might be involved with it also, which would be great, and everything. And it's Doctor Who was great when it had Torchwood and Sarah Jane, true spin-offs of the series. And you had, so that way, when Doctor Who wasn't on the air, you actually had Doctor Who content still coming at you.
Right, and they feel kind of niches. I mean, Torchwood was the kind of more dark and serious. They could push things further than Doctor Who could, because Doctor Who's a family show.
More grown up.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yes.
Sometimes it was the teenage idea of grown up. Also the Sarah Jane Adventures kind of aimed at a younger audience. So again, it was a family show that anybody could tune in and watch and enjoy.
Sure. And that's the cool thing about it. And we're at least getting Unit, and there's rumor going around that a second one is in the works also, but they haven't announced anything yet. And I would love, and this is me just putting it out there, I would love to see a Paternoster gang, for a spin-off. I think that would be amazing to see.
That's been begging for 10 years now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Crimson Horror was basically the pilot for it.
Oh, very much so. And also Big Finish has done a Paternoster gang series.
Also really good.
Which is really good if you get a chance to listen to. And it's all the original cast. So it's now Katrin, which I did say right here.
That's right.
And also, of course, Dan Starkey, which is really, really awesome. And the stories are great. The stories are great. And I know all three of them want to come back to the TV series. So.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with their spinoff was, as Moffat put it, was not only do you have to do period settings and whatnot, which are expensive to do, 2 out of your 3 cast members are in makeup, which are time-consuming and expensive. But again, Disney money might help with that.
Oh, of course. And that's the cool thing about it. And I think a lot of what we're going to get just depends on everyone's reactions to the 60th anniversary.
Yeah.
So
you better tune in or else.
Well, the adventures of Claire traveling around in the last second.
No.
As much as I love Jenna Coleman, I have had enough for one lifetime.
Yeah. No, I don't want to see the adventures of Clara and Meeg in their little diner in space. No,
I could see, as Maisie Williams is still, fairly big on the back of Game of Thrones and the movie and project she's been doing and whatnot. There was an anthology that was put together, about her, The Legend of the Shielder, that kind of filled in, because there's hundreds and now thousands and millions of years of stories you could fill in there.
Oh, sure.
Right.
And I thought the concept of me was awesome. I liked the idea of them going off happily on their adventures, because eventually Clara is going to have to come back to die. And that's the whole thing, because she was taken from a moment in time.
Right.
And everything. So it'll be very interesting. But does that mean both of them are immortal? That's the question.
Or are they just living to die another day?
Oh, thank you, James Bond.
It would definitely be a series where you know what the ending is.
Right. Well, then there was also the thought, we could also do a spin-off on the alternate Earth with Rose and the alternate Doctor.
Yeah. Dr. Handy.
Yeah.
Or Dr. Handy, as you just said.
10-2 is my other favorite name for him. So, I mean, there's a lot of possibilities there as well. I mean, Big Finish have dabbled into that and then stopped. They did 2 short trips with Camille Cadu playing Jackie, relating adventures that they have in that universe.
Sure.
And they stopped doing those. And for reasons that nobody at Big Finish has ever wanted to explain, which makes me wonder if maybe, because that was a couple of years ago when we now know everything was in the works.
That's very interesting.
One of the rumors that I've heard, and this is just rumors, so don't take this as, but that River Song might be coming back. And that Alex Kingston has been very sheepish about saying, because at cons and everything, everyone's been asking, are you coming back for the 60th? Are you coming back for the new adventures? And it would tie into something very interesting that she said in her very first appearance in Silence in the Library, was when she saw David Tennant. And she says, look at you, so young. So she's seen his face before. But, and wouldn't it be perfect with the specials? Because, his face, David Tennant's not as young as he was before. He's aged very gracefully, but his face is more, and it would just be really interesting that she meets this version of the Doctor. Because River bounces around in time just as much as the Doctor has. The storyline before was that River was going the opposite direction of the Doctor and everything. But, Capaldi's, when he came in, that threw that off a bit.
Yeah, they dropped that really.
Yeah.
Just kind of bouncing around in time.
Exactly. I know there was an idea pitched at the spin-offs panel that we had yesterday. The idea, we have that reference in the husband of River Song, that she's apparently been going around stealing the TARDIS all the time and flying around.
Yeah.
There's been, River Song stealing the TARDIS here and there in the middle of Classic Who adventures, say, and running around having adventures.
Oh, of course, but that's also why you have the Diary of River Song on Big Finish, too.
I mean, Big Finish has kind of laid out the template for if you want to do spin-offs. I mean, they've had a modern unit spin-off running for several years. Interestingly enough, Big Finish stopped doing that for a while, and are now doing have been doing the 4-series Nemesis.
Right.
The 4 box sets of that, which are apparently, from what I haven't heard them, but I have been told by those who do, that it seems like they're wrapping stuff up suddenly.
They are, and it's very interesting with that. And in the newest one they just announced, unit is meeting Missy.
Yes.
Which is Michelle Gomez.
Bring Michelle Gomez back, I say.
Oh, yes. She would be wonderful to be back. Because I have a theory with the Master, is the Master we just got in the last one, in the last 13th Doctor, Sasha Dewan was not the most recent version of the Master. It goes John Sims, Master, then to Sasha's Master, then to Missy. So,
I think an interesting spin-off, being that John Barrowman is our guest this weekend.
The Adventures of Captain Jack.
The Life and Times of Bo, because we saw the inception where he informs the audience that they called him the face of Bo, and we saw the death of Bo. So I think it would be cool to see kind of that transition from Jack into just this giant head.
We do have 5 billion years in between those events, too.
We do.
He does have time.
He has all the time in the world, so it's okay.
He does. But it would be
sort of
interesting
skip
to
along
see
to the
different
part
adventures or misadventures during that time.
But we also know that he was a time agent. We have vague fragments of what he was doing as one. I mean, there's all sorts of possibilities there as well.
Well, it'd be interesting to get Captain John back if they did, Captain Jack and Captain John would be a very interesting storyline.
Or even Jack and Alonzo. What happened there?
We would have to pay on a paper.
That's a different channel.
That's a different channel.
Cinemax.
No, Cinemax. Exactly. Well, I would love to see Captain Jack and River Song.
That
would be pretty amazing.
The universe
That's too much sass.
From all the sass.
I was going to say, would they be able to do anything for all the sass that would be on?
No, it would be
not Disney.
Personalities. The whole show would be done clashing.
We're just down.
They would try to be one-up each other the whole time.
There's an idea, a heist movie involving the two of them trying to go after the same thing.
Like an Ocean's 11 type. And actually them trying to put a crew together. And one of the crew members would be Nardo.
I need the phone number for Cardiff.
I think that's fan fiction at its best right there, folks. But it's awesome. We have a lot of Doctor Who coming our way after a very long period of nothing. And I think we're going to be seeing in the next, less than 6 months now, folks, we're going to see a renaissance of Doctor Who and a renaissance of Doctor Who fandom growing again. Because I know a lot of people, and sadly enough, they went away during the Capaldi era, then others went away during the Jodie era, that, they disappeared, and a lot of them are coming back because Tennant's coming back. So it'll be interesting if they can stay with Shudi's Doctor.
Yeah. Here's hoping.
Yeah, exactly. And we have a lot of great stuff to do, and we talk all about it on our podcast, Air Station Who, which is pretty darn amazing. We got postcards and stickers up here, folks, if you want. But, any final thoughts? Because this is going for a couple more minutes.
Yeah, we have a couple more minutes.
Yeah, so it's awesome. Any final thoughts on the anniversary? We've barely touched on what we want to see for Shudi's era of the Doctor and everything. So everyone's joking that it's going to be the Prince TARDIS because they're seeing lights, the purple lights in the inside of the TARDIS.
I mean, there seems to be, there's going to be we think there's going to be a Regency set episode, and we think there's going to be one set in the 60s.
Correct.
Based on the costumes and stuff we've seen. So I'm keen to see what they could possibly do with that.
That would be awesome. What's up?
I'd like to see one where the traveling companion gone bad becomes an evil nemesis.
They did that in the
steals technology from the TARDIS to make himself powerful. And
have you read Prisoners of Time?
No.
So that was the comic I think we were talking about. Spoilers for that. It turns out Adam is the big bad at the end of that who's been grabbing all the doctors and companions from out of time to get his revenge for what Nine did to him in The Long Game.
For those who don't remember, Adam is the companion that failed, basically. Because if you snap your finger, the little thing opened in his forehead and everything.
But that won't be happening on screen because of some stuff that Bruno Langley got up to. But the less we say about that, the better.
No. So, but it's real interesting stuff. But I like the idea of a companion going bad or something. And, but people were even suggesting that with, that River Song was a companion gone bad and everything, because that was a good one. If you remember there was a whole mystery, who is River Song, and that they did that. And I thought we actually just in our last episode we reviewed A Good Man Goes to War, where you actually find out, and it was done geniusly and everything. So it was pretty awesome the way they handled it and everything. So I think we got a lot of good stuff coming. Like you said, we'll be talking about it. We definitely would love you guys to chip in. Any thoughts and everything, please let us know.
Yeah.
And everything. Matthew, thank you so much for sitting with us.
Of course. And on behalf of all of us at Con K, you guys have been promoting us from very early on in our run, and you've come here and you've been part of the panels, obviously, but also promoting the show and just being part of the presence of there. And on behalf of myself and all of us here at Con K, thank you so much for everything you've done for us over the years.
Thank you. It's been our pleasure to be part of it and everything. And
It's an honor to be part
it's sad to see this is the last one.
Well, the last one for now, possibly. So.
Oh, spoilers! And we haven't recorded saying that, folks. So it's good. And
I'm not revealing anything that hasn't already been said in the Con-Chair panel yesterday. And Bonnie will probably talk about that at the end closing ceremony, but I will leave that to the boss lady.
Awesome. And any regeneration that Concave turns into, we will be there.
And we have you on tape saying this.
Yeah, exactly. I can erase that.
We have ourselves.
Thank you very much. My name is Mike Faber.
My name is Mary Ogle.
You can find us at Earth Station Who. We are available wherever fine podcasts are found. We are up there with the good ones too, so it's awesome. Thank you.
And there's us.
Thank you very, very much, guys. And thank you for everything. You guys were great this weekend.
Yes,
thank you.
So much.
You have been listening to Earth Station Who, a bi-weekly pop culture podcast dedicated to all things Doctor Who, featuring talent from across the universe. All topics on the show are the sole opinions of the individual and are used for entertainment value alone. You subscribe to our podcast up on iTunes, Stitcher, or follow our blog at www.esopodcast.com. You can also follow us up on Facebook, Twitter, or Google+. If you enjoyed the show, please leave feedback up on iTunes.
The Earth Station 1 podcast has been bringing your inner geek out to play for the past 13 years. Over this time, we've seen things change in the world of geek and podcasting alike.
And your friends here at ESO are looking to change also. We are now giving you double the fun by coming to you twice a week, and not just in audio, but now you can see our lovely faces up on YouTube.
Join Mike and Mike as we celebrate our 700th episode and beyond. Earth Station 1 is proud to be a founding member of the ESO Network.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.